Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how I used the Wing Gambit to beat a 2500 rated Blitz National Master in just 26 moves. So let's jump right into it. So the game started off with E4, I was white. Then it went C5 and B4. And this is the Sicilian Wing Gambit, and it's one of my favorite pet openings. I love to play it a lot during Blitz. Not because it's necessarily good or it's sound, but more because strong players like National Master James Canty here might not know how to deal with it. And in this game, he doesn't deal with it in the best way. So he takes the Gambit, which is suggested. That's what you're supposed to do here. I play A3, which is a variation of the Wing Gambit, and he plays D5. Now, this is the correct way to respond to the position. I've also seen in this position E6, I've seen E5, I've seen Knight C6, but D5 is by far the best move here, and after D5, Black is supposed to have equalized already, basically. So I take, he recaptures, and I play Knight F3. Now, before we go on, I'm just going to show you a quick trap for Black. In case White is very, very greedy here, and after Queen takes D5, they try A takes B4. Now, there's something seriously wrong with this move, so pause the video and take a couple seconds, take 30 seconds, take a minute, however long you need, and try to figure out what's wrong with A takes B4. Alright, so hopefully you paused the video, and if you did and you found the move, you would have seen Queen E5, which simply forks the king and the rook on A1. So that is the reason why we need to play Knight F3, because it stops Queen E5. Here, Black played G6, which is very logical because Black is saying, oh, I'm just going to give the pawn back so that there's no shenanigans, and then I can outplay my lower-rated opponent. Unfortunately, this move makes White's position very, very easy to play. Instead, I would recommend something like Knight C6, which would hold on to the pawn, and it would definitely test White a bit more. Here, I believe actually E5 is also a good option, which is followed by C4, and just play continues. But here after G6, I happily play Bishop B2 first, gaining in tempo, and after Knight F6, I recapture the pawn. So now it is no longer technically a gambit because I have recaptured my pawn, and it is equal material. He plays Bishop G7, and I play C4. Now, I'd just like to take a moment to mention that if you thought, oh, why are you playing C4? You can play Knight C3, which not only develops a piece, but it also attacks the queen as well. However, in this position, Knight C3 is not the best. The reason being is, not only does it block your great bishop on B2, but now, even if you wanted to play C4, you can't. And a lot of times in these positions, you don't want to have a pawn on B4 and a pawn on D4 by themselves, right? Because then the light scores around them are going to be very weak. So you want to have pawns together, not connected, but in this case, together. So that's why I played C4. And then we got a couple normal moves. And here I played D4. So the point here is obviously I'm just trying to take as much space as possible and control the center. Black naturally develops with Knight C6, and here I play a very, very powerful move, B5. Now the point of this move is simply to ask the question to the knight, where do you want to go? And surprisingly, there's not that many places it can go. Knight A5 seems like really, really sad because, I mean, like, what is it doing there? Knight B8 is kind of like not even an option. So my opponent here plays Knight B4, which seems like the lesser evil, right? However, if you're thinking like, oh, that doesn't even seem like an evil. That knight seems pretty annoying. It's going to come to C2. It's controlling some squares in the enemy position. Why is it bad there? So the reason why the knight on B4 isn't that strong is because although White can basically never kick it out, because as you'll see later on in the game, he plays A5, cementing the knight. However, after knight a3, my knight, which is on the rim, is defending the c4 pawn, and his knight, which is also on the rim, is not doing really anything. And the main problem with this knight on b4 is that it doesn't have anywhere to go. It can't go to any of these squares. So here, Black's knight on b4 is one of those pieces that seems very good and seems very active, but in reality, it's not really doing that much. So here he plays a5, like I said, to cement the knight's outpost. Knight e5, just playing a very natural move. I mean, it's blitz. Who's going to think for 2 minutes on the best move here? Knight d7, and here I played a very, very cool move. It might not be the best move in the position, but it's definitely hard to deal with. This move is g4. Now, if you're one of those people who are really obsessed with engine evaluations, you'll see the engine went from better for white to slightly better for black with this move. However, if you're black and your opponent is willingly opening up his king and trying to attack you, well, in a practical game, it's not that easy to deal with. Another point to point out is that here, although white is opening up lines towards his king is not actually in danger, because if you're black, you don't really have many ways to get to white's king. I mean, you'd have to go like something like e6, bring your king in, somehow get this knight out, bring your bishop over, and now you're threatening mate, right? It takes too long and it's not going to happen. So here, he takes on e5 and plays bishop e6. And here, I feel like technically the computer says that's the correct move, but I felt like he should have traded queens here, just because if you see later on in the game, his position got quite cramped, and trading some pieces would definitely have helped that. However, he played bishop e6, which is definitely good, and I play f4, which is definitely trying to cause some more problems with f5. Here, my opponent played f5 himself, trying to obviously stop me from playing f5. But this, I think, is the first big mistake of the game. And why is that? So f5, while it does stop me from playing f5, it creates two large problems. First of all, it makes his light-scored bishop worse, because now it's no longer as open as before. It's kind of just stuck behind his own pawn chain. And second, after my strong move g5, his dark-squared bishop basically just turned from a bishop into a tall pawn. And the reason for this is it doesn't really have any open diagonals, and it's kind of stuck in his position. If he wants to play h6, I simply play h4, reinforcing my bind. So here, after queen c7, my position is looking very good, and I make it even better with the centralizing queen move, queen d4. So not only am I putting my queen in a better position and connecting my rooks, but I'm also stopping him from playing queen c5 and wreaking some havoc. For instance, if we just pretend that I played something random, like rook b1, and he goes queen c5, all of a sudden, his queen can enter, maybe he can reroute his bishop to attack me on the long diagonal, and it's actually not so clear. Rook d8 is coming as well, so here I felt like queen d4 was a good move, and it was also very, very necessary in this position. He played rook d8, queen e3, still holding on to that diagonal. b6, rook a d1, bishop f8. Clearly you can see my opponent is running out of moves to make. He's going for this long-term plan of basically rerouting this bishop, moving the pawn, and bringing the bishop in, but it's a bit too slow. So here, I'd like you to pause the video a second time. Take a couple minutes for this one, because it's not as clear-cut as the previous tactic, but figure out what would you play here, obviously without looking at the notation on the right. But what would you play in this position as white? Alright, hopefully you have paused the video, and maybe you didn't come up with this, because this isn't as clear-cut like I said before, but I feel like rook takes d8 is by far the best move in this position. Now, why is that? The reason why this move is good is because it's simple. White is saying, I'm not afraid to trade pieces, because in the end, I will end up with good pieces, and you will end up with that tall pawn on f8. So here, after some rook trades, my opponent finally cracks with bishop takes c4, which unfortunately runs into bishop e3. And here, my opponent resigned. So what can we learn from this game? Well, first of all, we can see that although some openings, like the Sicilian Wing Gambit, are definitely not the best, but if you play them in blitz or bullet, sometimes you can catch your opponent off guard. Something else we learned is that sometimes it's okay to open up your king. For example, with 15g4, I'm kind of giving up king safety in order to pressure my opponent, and eventually I got him to crack, especially with this mistake 17f5, which basically locks his own bishops in. Another thing I'd like to note is that in this game, I did not give my opponent counterplay. In this position, I played g5. I am trapping some of his pieces. I am trying to give him less pieces to work with, which will definitely make my position better. Then, the next move, queen d4, limits his ideas. Now he no longer has queen c5 or queen b6 to enter my position. With a combination of those moves, I ended up winning a quick victory against my opponent. I hope you enjoyed reviewing this game with me. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, check out my blog on chess.com, and turn on notifications so you know when the next video comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!